Thank you and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Luke Thornton. I'm your host. And today we're going to talk about travel, but we're going to take it a little bit further. We're going to talk about the planning of a trip. I absolutely love the planning stage of any trip. It's not just about booking flights and packing bags, it's about crafting a lifetime experience. Whether it's a weekend getaway or an extended vacation home or abroad, a well thought out travel plan is crucial to ensure a smooth and enjoyable experience. So that leads me to talking to Chaz and Kaylee. Recently, we were at a gathering, and Chaz was showing me these fantastic pictures of their travel out west. I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm going to let you talk about that. And I said, well, who planned that trip? I said, that's something that I wanted to do. And Chaz says,
Let's talk about it.
let's talk about it. Okay, so gee, thanks. Welcome, Chaz and Kaylee. Okay, so tell Chaz, why don't you tell us where you guys went?
Yeah, I'll give you the key highlights here. So we started in a metropolitan area, Las Vegas, for a quick day there, but really the highlights were visiting the Bonneville Salt Flats. We took a trip out west, visiting Bonneville Salt Flats. We were able to end up in Yellowstone, which was the big highlight. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about Yellowstone, an amazing trip there. And then just touring around Montana, Idaho. We ended up in Colorado at the end. So we'll detail that, but really it was planned by Kaylee here, my better half. So I won't steal the show there.
All right, Kaylee. So you're the one to plan the trip, right?
Yes,
Okay. Chaz just tagged along, right?
I know. Yes,
All right.
yes.
So in a nutshell, tell us a little bit about your plan. What did you start off with? First off, why this particular trip?
Yes. So I am a big family person and I love traveling with my family. And so this was actually part of a bigger family trip that was going to end in Colorado. I had a cousin whose birthday was going to be in Colorado. She was having a big birthday party. So a few of my family members, my sister and one of my cousins, we decided, okay, well, let's add to that. Let's drive to Colorado. Let's figure out a way to get there by car. And so we decided to kind of make it a road trip to end up in Colorado. So we hit all of those spots that Chaz was talking about. That's kind of how it started initially, is working backwards really from this big family trip we had planned.
I love how when you start a trip and you have the time to plan it out, how you look at one piece and you say, you know what? If we do this, it becomes more efficient, just like what you
Definitely.
did. I mean, that's fantastic. How long did it take you to A, get an outline and then tell us how far in advance you started planning for this trip? Because remember, so for the people watching, you guys are in Chicago. Is everybody in your group, are they from Chicago?
No, so we're the only two from Chicago. One is in California and the other was in New York. And everybody is working professionals. Chaz and I are kind of in between roles right now. So we actually had more time to kind of contribute to the planning than anybody else. But it did take, I would say, overall about 3 to 4 weeks, I would say, to put everything together, which is kind of
You did
quick.
it in 3 to 4 weeks? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was pretty quick, but again, we had more time on in this household than, the other two had to plan. And so we had the idea maybe stewing for about 3 months, but we really put pen to paper and got it all together in about a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. I like how you put this together. It started off with just, "Hey, let's drive to Colorado."
Yeah.
So and this is for 6 people, but I think it ended up being more than 6 people, correct?
So on the road trip, it was just four of us, but we met the rest of our family in Colorado, and that was a bigger group. That was actually about 20 people, but the road trip was just four of us.
Okay. So, overall structure, and I let me recap. This is your time. You started in Chicago, you flew to
Yes, so we started in Chicago and we flew on a weekend. We flew from on a Saturday, we flew to Las Vegas. The two of us spent a day in Vegas, and then the other two met up in California and drove from California to Vegas. So they kind of met us that first night. And then after that, we left and started the road trip on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Um,
And we picked Vegas for a few reasons. One, kind of was central. They were coming from California. Two, Kaylee took me there on my 30th birthday about a year and a half ago. I had never been before, and she's like, "You love Vegas," and we had a great time 30 for my 30th. So we spent one night there, just kind of getting a city environment and enjoying the casino, the Michael Jackson show there. Did a lot of fun things before we started, hiking and embarking on the West in a different way. So that's how we started in Vegas for that one night, and I was able to get a free room at the Park MGM, which was amazing there as well. One of the best hotels in Vegas, so couldn't turn that down.
Okay. And so you all started off from Vegas and then you went into the wilds from there, correct? Did
yeah,
you end up
wow, wow,
coming
wow.
back to Vegas to fly back home, or did you fly from your endpoint?
Yeah, we flew from our endpoint in Colorado. So that leg of the trip in Colorado, we were there for a few days, just hanging around with my family and celebrating this relative's birthday. And so everybody just flew out to their respective destinations from Colorado. So we dropped off the rental car and all of that from our road trip there.
I was gonna ask you, so you explain your rental car process. I mean,
Yeah, I'll
who'd you
let you
rent
take.
from? What was the
Yeah,
type of deal that you
yeah.
did with them?
So I've accrued a bunch of points over years being exclusively with Hertz. So I'm what they call President's Club at Hertz. So I kind of had my pick of the litter when it came to the Las Vegas airport. So we spent a good 30 minutes looking through all the cars. Sometimes a little bit of too much selection caused some paralysis there. We settled on a 2025 Ford Bronco because we had a lot of luggage. People were coming from other trips and we needed this space. The inside was beautiful. I'd recommend it to anybody for the inside. But as we were driving out, the guy that we were renting it from said, "You guys are taking this cross country?" And we, nodded our head yes enthusiastically. And we figured out why he was asking that question. It was because the gas mileage does suck when you're going really fast on that Bronco there. I think we were getting 15 miles to a gallon. So recommend it for short trips, maybe not for longer ones. But we rented from Hertz, got a Bronco that we took all the way throughout the trip, starting in Vegas. And you want to kind of outline from there.
Sure, yeah. So we were in Vegas, then we went from Vegas through Utah. So we hit Bonneville, or not Bonneville, Bryce Canyon National Park. And so at that point, the elevation was also really high, which kind of taps into what Chaz was saying about going up these mountains and the car, having to navigate different mileage and things like
Yeah.
like
And how'd you guys settle on Bryce Canyon as our
oh, it's a good
first
question.
park?
So there's a couple national parks in that area. One of them being Bryce Canyon. The other is like one of the biggest in the U.S., which is Zion National Park. And that one just felt too big to kind
What was the
of
name of the park? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Zion National Park.
Zion, yes.
That one felt too big to be able to get all the way through, knowing that we wanted to see Yellowstone at the end as well. So we figured we just hit a smaller park, but still a national park, and it's beautiful and it's got a lot of red rocks and things like that. That's kind of how we landed on Bryce Canyon National Park. I will also add that I recently went through a leg surgery, and so we were trying to think through like beautiful sights and views at like but also being realistic about the types of hikes that we were doing. So I think that was another kind of reason we decided on this park.
Okay. So I have a couple questions. As part of your plan that you came up with, since you figured out your direction, Las Vegas or Nevada to Utah, did you go to Montana as well? Or
Yes, in Wyoming,
Montana, Wyoming, Colorado?
Idaho,
All
Hmm.
right.
Idaho. Yep.
Idaho. All right. So I want to ask you this. How did you use Google Maps? Did you pre-plan everything into Google Maps so that you could follow that and then put
Yeah.
it into Android Auto in the vehicle?
Yeah, great
Or
question. Great question. So we knew again kind of our endpoint that we wanted to make it to Yellowstone and then kind of come back south to get to Colorado. So what we did is to your point on Google Maps, we looked at the different parks that were along that kind of northward trajectory from Las Vegas. And so that's how we saw Zion, Bryce Canyon, Shoshone Falls, all those types of things. And then, like you said, on Google Maps, we went ahead and put like there's a way that you can kind of pin those locations or save those locations on Google Maps. And then from there, we were able to kind of actually work backwards and find our hotels and find all of those things as well. So, yes, we absolutely use Google Maps to kind of pin those spots.
okay. So you mentioned hotels.
Hmm.
And did you go take them as they come, or had they been pre-planned hotel stops?
They were absolutely pre-planned. We are not at all familiar with the Rocky Mountain region or that area, and have not really stayed in any of those states. And so we were wanted to be thoughtful about where we were staying, even though, we all knew each other very well and were comfortable with each other. We wanted to make sure that we were comfortable enough with the environment, especially in places that we didn't know. So we were very intentional about picking big cities. And so obviously we stayed in Las Vegas, and then we pushed to Salt Lake City. And then we had one night where we stayed in a like glamping, which is, I guess, kind of bougie camping.
Sure.
But it was right outside the park, and we felt like after doing some research on that area that it was a pretty safe area. And then we had one more stop in Casper, Wyoming, which is the second most populous area. And so yes, we were intentional about picking out hotels in the most populated areas, and we wanted to make sure that we certainly had a place to stay in those areas. So you can maybe talk about the points and how we
Yeah.
used.
So similarly with Hertz, I have been using Hilton for a lot of my hotel bookings. So had some points there, and that was really our hope was to try to start with Hilton if I had points there to reduce the costs as much as possible. So we were able to get into a few Hilton spots when we weren't glamping, of course. That we'll talk about here in Montana, but just a good spot that we were familiar with and we could lay our head. We were usually getting in super late at night after a long day of hiking and driving. So it wasn't some place that needed to be luxurious, just a spot to lay our heads.
Okay. So now I had to ask you, it sounds like we're dealing with, so when you're dealing with a group of people, everything is not static. Everybody does not have unlimited funds for the trip. So
Sure.
you have some people who have a lower end budget, some people have a higher end budget. Some people, like you said, you did the glamping. Some people, like, I've known you, Chaz, for a while. I never thought of you as an outdoors type person. Okay. How did you communicate with everybody? How did everybody get on board? Because they got to be a part of the trip. Like you said, it has to be fun for all. It can't just be fun for you too. So what did you do? How did you handle that?
We start? Yeah. So a few separate ways. One, as we know, Kaylee was the master planner here. I think the term "too many cooks in the kitchen." I didn't want to be a cook in the kitchen when it came to planning this, and I'm not typically that person, anyways. I'm a little bit maybe opposite of you two, where we'll set the spots and kind of I go with the flow. I might be big when it comes to planning the travel between or the hotels, but not necessarily the other nuances. So one is I was out of the mix when it came to planning. But two, in terms of budget, and Kaylee can maybe show or talk more about it because she really manned it. We used an app called Splitwise. So this is an app
Splitwise?
that, yeah, Splitwise. We use this in our personal life too, but it's just a
Used
good
it on
way.
other trips.
We use it on other trips. It's a good way for a group of people to come together and really understand all the expenses that are going into the trip, whether it's gas, hotel, name it. So I rented the car, for example. Kaylee might have gotten a hotel. Somebody else might have bought the glamping. Rather than us maybe getting at each other's throats about who owes who, it was clear and it was organized and splitwise. And so we know exactly how much we spent during those days that we traveled and what the splits it up directly for us for how much each person owes at the end of the trip.
Hey, for those of you watching, we will put a link to the Splitwise app in the description below. Speaking of that, if you like our content, please like and subscribe to the channel. Everything we talk about, there will be a link below on the phone. Hey, so I like how you guys handled the budget. You made it easy for everybody. I,
Yeah.
talk about food because that is always a big deal. Okay, I'm going to ask you this question. Are you guys breakfast, lunch, dinner people, or are you breakfast, dinner? How do you guys look at it when you plan for a trip?
In our personal day-to-day life where it's different. Like I feel like we are breakfast and dinner people. But on the trips, I feel like we're snack-ish breakfast, snack, dinner.
Okay.
And so that's kind of how we handled it. I will say we did have different dietary needs in our group. So 3 out of the 4 of us eat anything. And then one person that was in our group is a pescatarian, and so she only eats fish and things like that, or more vegetarian related foods. And so that was kind of interesting and made for some interesting stops.
I would imagine when you're in the mountain west, I mean, obviously, they have great fishing out there, everybody knows that, but they also
Yeah.
have a lot of good hunting, so you're gonna have a lot of elk and, you know,
Yeah.
wild game, so to speak.
Yeah.
That was one of the jokes on our trip was there was so much beef jerky, elk jerky, alligator
And
jerky,
the
bison jerky
out.
that everybody was eating, and the person that is my sister, she's pescatarian. She was eating lots of salmon jerky.
Salmon jerky, okay.
Salmon jerky. Yeah, who knew? I didn't even know that it was a thing, but apparently it's good for it's a good road trip snack, but then yeah, also help to kind of get the vibe of being out west eating all that jerky.
Okay. So how did you guys handle add-ons? Like all of a sudden you're driving down the street, you're like, "Oh, oh, oh, I gotta go over there." How did that happen? What did you guys do? Because first off, I need to say this. The entertainment is really the trip itself. It's being
Yeah.
out with nature and everything. So I understand that part. So we're gonna pass on entertainment, but the add-ons, how'd you guys handle the add-ons?
Yeah. We didn't have a ton of add-ons this trip, and if we did, we added them on, like, the night before at a hotel, so we would look or wherever we were staying, we would look at the route and kind of determine, "Okay, let's stop here, let's stop there." But in the moment kind of add-ons, we didn't really have a ton of those that I
Yeah.
could think of, because we also were rotating drivers. So I will say Chaz and one of my cousins did probably most of the driving, but I would say a lot of our stops were sort of so that we could switch drivers as opposed to add-ons.
Yeah.
Definitely not as many as I've had in other road trips. What would you say?
Yeah. What I would say is there was a lot of open scenery and kind of grass and then, 2-lane highways that we were going on there. And tying back to the food, part of the reason why we were breakfast snack 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 is we were in close quarters in that Bronco there. We didn't want any crazy foods that we're gonna have to be pulling over on the side of the road or anything. So we kept it clean there.
Yes.
It's a Subway, I think.
Yeah, lots of Subways, a lot of Subway sandwiches. But yeah, usually, like Kaylee was saying, it would be if we hit our large event, maybe it was the Bonneville Salt Flats. Uh, we were really pushing to get to the location time wise, got
Yeah.
there, enjoyed it. And then on the back end, if we're just driving to our hotel, then we could stop and, go to a souvenir shop or get maybe more of
Yeah.
a bigger dinner, things like that. So the day was really planned around the entertainment.
Okay. Great. So Kaylee, I want to take you back a little bit further. I don't know if we addressed this, but that's basically the communication with other people. Did we talk about that earlier? How did you communicate with each other
Sure.
to garner their interest, and things that they wanted to do as well?
Sure, yeah. So my sister and my cousin, we really like to travel a lot together, and we spent a lot of time over the years and growing up visiting each other in different places and things like that. And so this trip kind of naturally developed off of our love for that, I would say. And so a lot of our communication was via FaceTime and via texting, just trying to get the details and things together in that way. And so I would say that's kind of how it blossomed from our group chat, so to speak. Finally left the group chat, as they say.
Okay, great. I liked what you said earlier. You talked about how, and I should have talked about it at the time, how you said, at first it was just going to be Colorado. And then you realize, you know what? Let's let's add stuff to it. I
Yeah.
remember the first time I went to Thailand, we were flying and I'm like, whoa, we got a layover in Dubai. I'm like, why don't I just stay in Dubai for several days before I go to Thailand? And that
Yeah.
makes so much sense. It saves so much money, and you knock off 2 birds with 1 stone. By the
Mhm.
way, my trips can be followed under my travel playlist, where you can see where I've been in some of my favorite trips. And actually, Kaylee, when we were talking about this and you saw, Old Faithful, right,
Yeah.
at, Yellowstone, I was looking at your pictures, which I am going to put a link to her pictures here so you can see their entire trip. Tell me about that experience, to wonder because what you guys did, this is a lifetime type trip. A lot of people never see the part of the country that you guys just went to. It's
Mhm.
flyover country, right? We go from
It
Chicago
really
to
is.
LA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want me to start? Yeah. So again, I'm gonna say it the third time, and then the last time. Kaylee planned all the trip, right? Um, but I had two requests that I was certainly wanted to see. One was the Bonneville Salt Flats, which we can get into, which is really beautiful. But two was most certainly Yellowstone. About 3 or 4 years ago, I took Kaylee to Yosemite out in California, and we just kind of fell in awe with the vastness of that national park there, the rock formations, the different trees. And so Yellowstone, I had heard, had, different wildlife, water and whatnot. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't look too much into it before, which was great. I would say Yellowstone was a whole step above Yosemite for a multitude of reasons. It's
Wow.
probably the most beautiful scenic view I've ever seen. The Yellowstone River there is so vast, and you're right up on the water, and they have waterfalls that are gargantuan. I think they call it the Niagara Falls of the
Of the
West
West, yeah.
over there. Massive
That's the show.
falls. And we're within 5, maybe 7 feet of these massive waterfalls, like closer than you could get to Niagara Falls there. It's huge scenic drop-offs. The wildlife is beautiful. The colors are just super vibrant there,
Yeah.
from the rocks to the trees there. I've never experienced anything like Yellowstone, so that would be my number one recommendation, is for people to go check that
Mhm.
out. And so,
Okay.
yeah, some of the key highlights
Yeah.
were Old Faithful within there, and some of the geysers and springs. Kaylee had a
Grand
few things.
Canyon.
Yes,
That's what it was. The Niagara was shown.
Grand Canyon of the West.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great features out there.
Yeah.
What were some of
Or
the
of
key things
Yellowstone, something. We're
you
messing this
wanted
up.
to see in Yellowstone?
I was really interested in seeing, actually for years I thought Old Faithful referred to that big like multicolor geyser spring. And so I had my head wrapped around that. So the whole trip I was like, I want to see Old Faithful. I want to see Old Faithful. And then when we saw Old Faithful, I was like, this is not what I thought it was. And so I was actually looking forward to seeing that big prismatic spring. They call it the Grand Prismatic Spring, that's like rainbow color and has an interesting effect to it. And you wouldn't know this, but where they kind of lead you to the spring, you're actually looking at it at I don't know how you would explain it,
Ground level.
like ground level. And so you don't see as much, but you can kind of see the colors. And then there's like another route where you can go kind of higher up and actually see the beautiful colors and the sun hitting it a certain way.
Yeah.
So that was definitely my highlight, along with spending time with Chaz and my sister and my cousin and just the whole road trip, like you said.
Chaz,
And
you
then
mentioned Bonneville Salt Flat. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a few years ago, again, was looking on YouTube and saw about a Bolivian salt flat. I'd never heard of Bonneville, but these salt flats, they're what they're called. There's salt on the ground, just regular table salt. I actually picked a little bit up and licked it. Tastes like table salt. I looked it up. It was relatively safe to do. But these salt crystals on the ground, when dry, just look like beautiful, massive, as far as you can see, expansive, just kind of gray dust. But when this grounds get wet, the salt gets wet and it gets rained on, it reflects the sky beautifully to the point where it looks like a mirror, almost like you're walking on glass. It's really scenic. It was dry when we were there, but I've seen the photos of it just absolutely being a beautiful mirror of the sky. So I didn't know that they had this in the US until like a year or so ago. I know they had one in Bolivia. So I wanted to get out there. It would have been amazing if it had rained, but even if it didn't rain, it was still beautiful there. I think it's also one of the spots where they do a lot of drag racing, just because it's miles and miles of flat land. And so a lot of the fastest car tests are done on the Bonneville Salt Flats. Really just a great spot to see, especially if it just rained. I would recommend that spot as well.
Okay. You mentioned Bryce Canyon. And how much hiking did you do in Bryce Canyon? Did you do a lot of hiking? Oh, I forgot. You just had knee surgeries. Chaz,
Yeah.
did you do a lot of hiking at
She
Bryce
did it
Canyon?
too. She did it too. She's
Oh,
Yeah.
she
eight
did
months
do it?
old.
Okay.
I did do it, but we were intentional about certain hikes because I did have knee surgery in January of 2025 this year. So I am at a point where I can absolutely do some hiking, but there were moments where going downhill and things like that could have been hard. So we were at a 8,000 foot elevation
Hmm.
above sea level, right? And then we did, I would say, was it about a mile and a half hike down, and then about a mile and a half hike back up?
Yeah, I think it was
something like that.
yeah, it was around that distance.
Yeah, it's basically like a rim
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah,
or loop is what they called it, the Navajo
yeah.
Loop, which is one of the most beautiful trails they had at Bryce Canyon. But also one of the more beginner ones given my leg scenario.
Beautiful switchbacks going both ways, just kind of zigzagging your way down into the rock formations that were formed 100, 10 million years ago. It used to be water there. So you see these really cool rock formations that were built out there. And at 8,000 feet, that's nothing to play with, especially just coming off the plane or your first hike. So we had a camelback water backpack. So we had a little thing that I could always squeeze and kind of get water out of. I had
An
a liter or
electrolyte.
two in
Mhm.
there and some electrolytes. She had her hiking boots on, so we made sure we took the safety precautions there because the security, the ranger there said, we do see quite a few broken ankles on this track each year, so that freaked us out a little
Yeah.
bit. And I'm not the best with heights, so Kaylee and I were in the back taking it kind of cautious, and then her cousin and sister were kind of pushing it up the front at the beginning there. But it was really beautiful there. The rock formations are incredible at Bryce Canyon.
Yeah. And we were really thoughtful about everybody in the group. So again, with that elevation, not only was it maybe hard on the knees or hard on, because of us sweating and needing to get more water, but sometimes it was also hard on the lungs, kind of walking through those elevations. So we were really thoughtful about everybody. If someone needed to take a break, we absolutely took a break for a few minutes and then kept walking again. And it was also really hot too.
Yeah.
So lots of different factors, but it was nice that we were able to, make sure everybody was taken care of throughout, and had what they needed.
That's due to you and your great planning. I'm glad to hear that you took your Camelback. I I love when I'm hiking, having my Camelback water supply with me. I find that a lot of people aren't prepared when they go hiking, especially in, high terrain, high heat as well. Did you by any chance, did you see the train station in Bryce Canyon, part of the Circle Tour?
I don't think we saw that.
Okay. The next time you guys go, you might wanna do the train ride because it hits, what, Colorado, is it New Mexico, Utah, and there's 4 states, right? Arizona. Those are the 4
Yeah.
states that it goes around, and
Wow.
Bryce is one of the
Yeah.
canyons that it hits, so you might wanna do that.
Yeah, we'll have to.
I love the pictures of the buffalo, the beaver, the moose, and the elks. Where were you when you took those pictures?
So they were at different places actually. So the beaver and the bison were at Yellowstone. The beaver was actually sitting in a sulfur cauldron. So we were actually worried about its safety because it was very hot and very acidic right there, but it seemed to be enjoying the weather and where it was at. And so that was at Yellowstone. The bison were also at Yellowstone. Some of them were in the distance, some of them were like you wouldn't even notice until you saw a bunch of cars and clearly there was something sitting there and sure enough there were bison by the road. And then the moose were at actually Rocky Mountain National Park, which is where we ended up kind of with my family. That was like the last part of our trip in Colorado.
Okay. I was just writing down, that I'll put a link on here for the Department of Natural Resources website because, getting that pass is pretty cool, and you get the card,
Yeah,
and you could get into all the parks. I think that's fantastic. I
that was
know
a
that we've done that
huge
ourselves.
that was actually a huge planning part of our trip that we initially had planned to maybe just get a pass at each stop, or because when we had done parks in the past, that's how we'd done it. But my sister was coming from a different trip before she made it to California with my cousin to drive to Vegas. And she had hit a bunch of national parks herself. And so she ended up buying that pass. And so that was good for pretty much all of the parks that we
Yeah.
needed to get into. It's like $80 for the year, which is really nice.
It's a really good deal. It's a really good deal.
Yeah.
All right. So getting close to wrapping this up, what would be your biggest takeaway or your biggest lasting memories? I'm going to start with you, Chaz,
Yeah.
because you seem like you recall these fairly well, and especially since
Yeah.
she did all the work. She wanted you to get that experience. I just want you to
Yeah.
know.
She did a great job. Biggest lasting memory certainly is Yellowstone. I'm still wearing the shirt here. Yellowstone is a once in a lifetime location. You know, seeing we just mentioned the bison there. It's not something you roll up on every day. Things that are the size of your car, weigh twice as much as your car, and they're so peaceful creatures. We saw them on the side of the road. They were just kind of laying there. So being able to get that close to that other wildlife, and then, like I mentioned, the rock formations, the trees, the water. Yellowstone was absolutely beautiful. Company was great as well. We got to spend a lot of time, learn about each other, get off of our phones because none of ours had service, and enjoy each other's company. So make sure you get people that you're willing to spend time with and like and want to kind of get to know better. And then the Bonneville salt flats was beautiful as well, and really that reflecting of the sky when it's wet would be my three recommendations for people on the channel.
Kayla?
Yes, I agree. The spending time with everybody was probably my top memorable experience because all three of those people that we went on the trip with are very, very important to me. And so it was nice to be able to spend time with them all together in one place. Yeah, for a long period of time. I will say the other big thing that I think I sort of take away is the difference in terrain in every different place that we went. I mean, we could drive 50 miles in one terrain and then another 50 miles, and the terrain looked completely different, or the weather was completely different. And then we get into, another national park, and the weather looks completely different, and the terrain is different. And so I think just being able to see our country in a different way, and it's such a large amount of area, was really, really beautiful and amazing to see.
Okay. So I have a question that's going to be a little bit different for you. Okay. It's along this, but you guys so vividly talked about the memory. How do you keep that memory? Do you have a physical photo album or is it digital? And then tell me why. And then I'm going to give you my response and what I found, what I feel, felt, found. You know how they say that in
Yeah.
sales, right?
Notorious for both, in a good way, notorious for both. I definitely have digital albums, but then I also really, really enjoy whenever I go on trips, putting them into like photo books and creating kind of scrapbooks of the experiences. I haven't started one for this trip yet, but that may be something that I end up doing because I like having, being able to flip through and look at the experiences and writing certain things about the trip or funny memories, things like that. So that's my preference.
Yeah. I think Kaylee's big on the digital kind of shared album. So
Mhm.
we have four different phones on that trip. We all had different angles and great shots. So
Mhm.
everyone put all their photos in there. I think we've got 500 plus photos in that shared album. You know, Kaylee put some photos on social media, the ones that she likes the best, that'll kind of memorialize it. They'll talk about it for weeks and weeks on end about some of the funny moments
Back to that group chat, yeah.
back in the group chat.
Yeah.
But then
I think that Kaylee did an excellent job of planning this trip. And that's why I asked her and Chaz to be on the interview. So I want to encourage anybody to make a comment on places that they may want to go to or I may want to go to in the future, someplace that we don't normally go. I mean, life is fast. We fly everywhere. We don't drive. 2 years ago, Cecilia and I went to South Dakota. Had a blast. I saw Wall Drug. So for anybody watching
Right.
and they see the signs for Wall Drug, it's in South Dakota and it's really cool. So like I said, I will put links to the place DNR, to the Splitwise trip. I will also add if you want to sign up for the Chase Sapphire Reserve, I'll put a link in there so you can get that credit card because those points add up. So anyway, I love bringing new ideas to fruition. Like I said, if you have an idea for a trip, please let us know. You can download the way I plan, and I want to see your feedback. Don't forget, please like and subscribe. As and Kaylee, thank you for your time. I certainly would appreciate it and appreciate you guys for
again,
everything. And these pictures are going to be linked below. Thank you.
bye
Thank
bye.
you.